Please. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40! Can't wait! Let's go!
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show powered by Sports Empire Network. Thank you for making us part of your morning routine, whether you're watching us live on Facebook, live on YouTube, or maybe, just maybe, you are partaking in us this morning on Roku TV. I am Chris, and of course, that over there is Mo. Mo, how are you this morning, sir?
Doing well as usual. I guess Jerry Jones is defiant.
Let me clean the camera over here real quick. Improve that quality of that photo, Mo.
Love it.
Mo, let's start there. You want to start there? We'll start there. The Dallas Cowboys, and specifically Jerry Jones, let it be known yesterday, there is not going to be a coaching change in Dallas. Mike McCarthy is going to continue as the Dallas Cowboys head coach. And Mo, I'm the kind of person where I like to understand all sides of a situation. So before we hammer the Dallas Cowboys and we hammer Jerry Jones, let me paint the other side of the picture for you and see if there is a logical reason to why we're doing this. Mike McCarthy took over the Dallas Cowboys in 2020, coming off of a 2019 season where the Dallas Cowboys did not make the playoffs following their playoff loss in 2018. It was a rough first year with the Cowboys. They went 6-10. But since then, he has gone 12-5 in 3 consecutive seasons. 2 of those seasons have resulted in NFC East championships. His first trip to the playoffs 3 seasons ago was a loss in the opening round to the 49ers. It was a 1-score game. Last season, they returned to the playoffs. They beat the Buccaneers and Tom Brady in the opening round of the playoffs, and then they lose to the 49ers again in a 1-score game. This season, in all unlikeliness, they win the division after the Philadelphia Eagles collapse, their second division in 3 seasons. They return to the playoffs for their 3rd consecutive season, and they lay an absolute egg against the Green Bay Packers. Coming into this season, Mo, I don't know if it was a narrative, but you could argue that the biggest hurdle for the Dallas Cowboys in getting to a Super Bowl was the San Francisco 49ers. It was the 49ers who had beaten them both of the previous seasons to knock them out of the playoffs. Obviously, we didn't get to see round 3 of that matchup this season because the Cowboys exited early. But Mo, if I look at this as a whole and I say, okay, I have a head coach who has gone 36-15 over the last 3 seasons. 36-15. 3 straight 12-5 seasons. I have a head coach who has won the division 2 out of 3 seasons. I have a head coach that just got the most productive season-long performance out of my franchise quarterback, who we are paying a lot of money to, since his rookie year in the league. Have we gotten the playoff success that we want? No. We did win a playoff game, so we are 1-3 in the playoffs. He hasn't lost every playoff game, but we definitely do not have the playoff success that we are looking for. So, Mo, when you look at it from that angle, it is a little hard to fire Mike McCarthy. Now, I understand if you're the Dallas Cowboys, it is Super Bowl or bust. It is at least NFC Championship or bust. But, Mo, it's almost like the quarterback conversation in the sense of it's great to be unhappy with what you have when what you have is coming up just short of where you want to be. It's not like Mike McCarthy is the Zach Wilson of head coaches and you're nowhere near what you want your final destination to be. No, Mike McCarthy's in the building. He's on the wrong end of the building, and he can't seem to get to the middle of the building to then reach the other side, but he's in the right building. If Zach Wilson's your starting quarterback for your franchise, you're not even in the right building. You're not even in the parking lot. You're stuck on the freeway somewhere trying to get closer to the arena. That's not what you have with Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy gets you in the building. He just hasn't gotten you to the other side of the building yet. So, Mo, when you have that, when you're in the building, isn't it a scary proposition to say, hey, let's throw away what seems to be pretty much a guarantee? Double-digit wins, competing for the division. We won the division 2 out of 3 seasons, make the playoffs the last 3 seasons. Let's throw that away. Shake up the locker room, bring in a new coach, which means a new offensive coordinator, probably a new defensive coordinator, new assistants, new vibe, new aura, new regime. Don't know how the players are going to react to that. Don't know how Dak's going to react to that. Let's shake it all up, because even though we're in the building, we're not getting to the other side of the building. We need to get to the other side of the building. So let's shake everything up and hope, at minimum, we get right back here. Because if we don't get back here, that's an issue. So we got to shake it all up, hope we get back here, and then whoever we hire then takes us to the next step. That is a tall task, Mo, because what if they don't? What if you shake it all up and Dak looks like Dak from a couple seasons ago? Average. Lots of turnovers. Not that great. What if you shake it all up and the defense takes a step backwards and they play more like they did in the Green Bay game during the regular season, and now we go from 12 wins to 9 wins? That's an issue. That being said, Mo, would you get rid of him?
So I like the picture that you painted, because you pointed out the good stuff.
The good stuff, right?
There's nothing wrong with winning 2 division titles.
It's pretty good.
Especially in a division that includes a very competitive Philadelphia Eagles franchise. There's nothing wrong with that at all. The 36-15, that is very impressive.
It is. It is.
But there's another way to look at this. What if, because remember, the Dallas Cowboys have not won a Super Bowl since 95?
Correct.
95.
Correct.
And so what if Mike McCarthy came to the Cowboys and he gave you 2 9-7 seasons, and then the third season you won the Super Bowl, and then he followed that up with another 9-7 season? You would love him. He would be immortalized in Dallas, because there's no 12-win seasons, but there is that one blip Super Bowl season. The goal is to win Super Bowls, right?
Sure.
Especially in Dallas. So I think the trade-off is, if you told me 3 mediocre seasons but 1 Super Bowl run, you would take that in a heartbeat. You would take that trade-off in a heartbeat. And they're different sports, but I would look at it this way. No, Mike McCarthy isn't one of the bottom half of the coaching tier. He's not a bad coach. But Doc Rivers isn't a bad NBA coach. And like Mike McCarthy, he has won 1 championship. But everywhere he's gone since then, the expectation was to win titles, right? Not just to be good, but to win titles. And even with loaded team after loaded team, great records, Doc comes up short in the playoff. And what happens to Doc? He's no longer the coach of the Sixers. Those are the expectations. Again, different sports, but the same mantra is to win a championship. I'm looking at Mike McCarthy. I get it. Jerry Jones is saying, well, first of all, we might not even want Bill Belichick. So if we don't want Bill Belichick and you want us to fire Mike McCarthy, who's our next hire? Because from what we've heard, Jim Harbaugh's not interested in coming here, and I'm pretty sure Jim Harbaugh is not interested in coming there. So where is the upgrade? Who is the upgrade? And if you're talking about name coaches, established coaches, the only coach I could think of maybe would be a Mike Tomlin, but he doesn't seem to be going anywhere. But what about some of these young, talented offensive coordinators who seem to have a mind for the way the game is played in this current era of football? What about going there? What about a guy who may be able to elevate a Dak Prescott even further? More importantly, elevate him in the playoffs. You can stay with the status quo. I get that. And every year, Dallas Cowboys fans will be excited. They'll go, hey, Mo, Chris, we're 12-5. We just won the division. Our hopes are high. We're probably going to beat the Niners. This is our year. And what's going to happen is you're going to come up short again. You just will. I think at some point you have to realize there is another level. I'm not saying Mike McCarthy has not done a good job with the Dallas Cowboys. You're right. He came there when they had failed epically, not made the playoffs. He made them relevant again. They're a very good team. They're always a contender, not just to win their division, but to be the number one seed in the conference. But I think there's a ceiling with Mike McCarthy. And I think the ceiling has been reached. I would argue that if you brought in a younger coach with ideas that are geared towards the way the game is played and more aggressive offensively, and maybe a better leader of men, what if the Cowboys went 10-6 next year or 10-7 next year, but they won the Super Bowl? Nobody would be going, well, Mike had 12. Nobody would care. What you would care about is that coach actually set you up for success in the postseason. I think, to me, more than anything, you led off with why move on from it. I really think that Jerry Jones and his son sat down and go, it's not bad. Like Chris, you made a great compelling argument. They're sitting there go like Chris said, it's not bad. More than likely, we're going to win 11 or 12 games next season. We're going to be right in the mix to, if not just win the division, be the number one seed in the conference. Who's to say that Dak won't build off of this season and be better next season? Hey, we found out Tony Pollard's not a number one back. We'll go out and get a number one back, put Tony Pollard back in his natural position, and we'll be better that way as well. Those cases can be made. I would argue there needs to be change, but I get it. What Jerry Jones is saying, I hear everything that everybody's telling me I need to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. And what I want to do is, one, I like the fact that I could book it. We're going to win 11 or 12 games. And two, I hate to label coach one way or the other, but Jerry Jones, we can both, or anybody listening would admit this, he tends to like coaches he can kind of oversee. He tends to like coaches that he can micromanage. And you're not going to bring in a coach with a big personality, with a strong alpha ego, and put them with Jerry Jones. It will be a rigid, tough relationship at best. If you don't believe me, go see Jerry Jones and Bill Parcells. That wasn't great. Go see the ending of Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson. That wasn't great. So Mike McCarthy's also there because, and I'm not calling him a yes man, but I am saying Jerry Jones likes coaches that he can micromanage, and Mike McCarthy fits the bill.
And I was going to go there next, Mo. Jerry Jones has worked with Mike McCarthy now for 4 seasons. He knows who he has in an employee with Mike McCarthy. Let's take a look at some of the possible coaching options that could have came in. Because if you're going to replace Mike McCarthy, you're going to it needs to be a splash, right? Bill Belichick, you don't want that relationship if you're Jerry Jones. Harbaugh, you don't want that relationship if you're Jerry Jones. You need somebody with a similar personality of Mike McCarthy. You need someone who you can more or less kind of step on their toes if you feel the need to. And believe me, Jerry Jones likes to step on toes. And if you're Jerry Jones, you like the fact that when you step on his toes, at least publicly, he doesn't push you off. Now, right. He might make comments behind closed doors. We're not there. We don't know what's happening. But we do know that Mike McCarthy does not push back against Jerry Jones publicly, which is what Jerry Jones likes. Jerry Jones does not want his coach causing friction with him in the media. Jerry Jones, like you just said, he also likes the Cowboys being relevant. Double-digit wins every season, Mo. That makes you pretty gosh darn relevant because you're always in the playoff conversation. You're always in the division winning conversation. You're always in the Super Bowl conversation. Winning 8 and 9 games, you're not in that same conversation. But when you're constantly an 11 or 12 win team, pencil it in. Super Bowl talks happening in Dallas, and that's what Jerry wants. He wants to be in those Now, what he wants ultimately is to win. Let's not fool ourselves. I think he would give limbs to win another Super Bowl. I honestly believe that. So it's not just he's happy to be in the conversation, but he is also an internal optimist. he believes, and you can tell by listening to him, if we're in the conversation, it means we're good enough to get there.
Facts.
And I honestly, truly believe that's his mindset. The fact that people are saying Dallas Cowboys and Super Bowl in the national media, not just Cowboy fan Micah Parsons on his little radio show.
Right.
The fact that people not related to the Dallas Cowboys are saying we're in the conversation, that means we're actually in the conversation. And I don't think Jerry Jones has the stomach to go tear that apart for the unknown. I think he would much rather say, listen, like you said, Mo, we're going to bring in a number one back. We might bring in another wide receiver in the offseason to give Dak another weapon. We're going to fill a couple of holes here and there on the lines, and we're going to run it back as a 3-time 12-win team, 2 out of 3 seasons division champions, and we're just going to see if we can change the playoff narrative when we get there. Not if we get there, not if we get back to the playoffs. When we get back to the playoffs, we'll see if we can change that narrative. And I think that's where Jerry wants to be, as opposed to, oh, Dak seems different without Mike McCarthy. Right. Oh, well, McCarthy left, Quinn left. The defense seems to have taken 2 steps back. That's not what Jerry Jones wants to go through. And I think ultimately that's why he made the decision, Mo.
Right. I think he just made a safe play. I think you hit it on the head. He's the ultimate optimist. I think Jerry woke up after a couple of days of reflection, and he woke up like he normally wakes up and says, so you're telling me there's a chance? He wakes up every day like that. He looks at it and goes, he had 15 Pro Bowlers. We went 12-5. He said, we're fine. We're fine. It's not about Coach McCarthy. It's about Jerry Jones. What Jerry Jones is saying is, I can leave Mike and play. I can make this work. I can lead us. Look, in the end, it's no secret he micromanages. It's what he does. I mean, I don't know how many owners have their own show where they go on and they talk shop about the team and how things are. I mean, he is a dude. It's no secret. He loves the limelight and he loves talking about his Dallas Cowboys. And you're right. When you're relevant and people talk about you, in Jerry's mind, we matter. We've got a chance. And not to mention, when you're relevant, that revenue stream moves up too. Like that merchandise stream moves up too. Jerry loves to win and he wants to win, but he loves his money too. And when the Dallas Cowboys are one of the better teams in the National Football League over the last 3 or 4 years, best believe that merchandise has gone out the roof. So I understand, even though I disagree, but I understand why Mike McCarthy is coming back.
Mo, looking across that division, things are a little uncertain in the land of the Philadelphia Eagles. It has come out that head coach Nick Sirianni is going to pitch the future plan of the team today to the ownership group, and they are going to make a decision after they hear what their head coach's plan is moving forward. Mo, I hear that, and what I actually hear is, we're thinking about firing you, but if you come in and impress us, we might keep you around for another season. But we need to see and hear where you're at before we decide whether or not we're going to keep you. What I'm not hearing, Mo, is, hey, let's have a collaborative conversation. We have some ideas. I'm sure that you have some ideas. Let's set the foundation for what next season looks like. We're all in this together, High School Musical style, and we're going to move forward instead. I'm not hearing that, Mo. What I'm hearing is, you better come sit down, Mr. Nick Sirianni, and you better say some things that make us go, oh, okay. All right. Otherwise, the conversation is going to end with you getting a pink slip.
I feel like Nick Sirianni, the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, is actually coming in almost auditioning. He's the head coach. He's already the head coach of the Eagles. Maybe he's actually more like a defense lawyer. And his job is to go in there, state his case, and whatever they're thinking about doing, he's got to put some doubt in their head, right? Because if you can get one person on there to have some doubt about that move, he's going to keep his job. So what he's got to do is go in there and wow them and go, you know what, Nick, we didn't even think of that. Somebody in there is going to say he makes a strong case because we were about to fire this guy, but damn it, that was a really good case to bring him back. Like I actually think he's going to go in there, have that conversation, and then have some players come in and be character witnesses to bolster his case. That's what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles.
I hope the defense does not call A.J. Brown to the stand.
No,
I don't think A.J. Brown needs to be a part of that meeting.
That is a hostile witness.
And they will treat him as such. If you're the Eagles, what do you do with A.J. Brown? And I'm not suggesting that they're going to do anything with him other than have him as a player on their roster next season. But part of what transpired with the Eagles during this last month and a half was kind of the falling apart of the locker room. And I don't care at this point if you're an Eagles fan and you want to say, the media narrative, that wasn't this. No, it was. It was because it was back in week 1 and 2 that A.J. Brown was doing crap, right? He was making noise when the season first started, and it died down at times. But for the most part, he's been making noise the entire season. And you can tell me that it's overblown. You can tell me that it's not as big of a deal as the media is making it. And you can tell me, like A.J. Brown said, well, every receiver is upset when they lose. A.J., we know that. We know that NFL players don't like to lose. We know that receivers like to have the ball thrown their direction. We also know that what you're doing in Philadelphia doesn't look like the other 31 teams, with the exception of the Buffalo Bills and Stephon Diggs. But I guess you're probably going to tell me, A.J. Brown, there was no issue in Buffalo with Stephon Diggs either. That was probably another situation of the media just blowing things up and making things out of nothing. Oh, but by the way, A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs didn't go delete everything related to the Buffalo Bills off of his social media accounts. You took things a step further. So clearly there is something there, and that's going to have to be addressed moving forward into next season, because regardless of who the head coach is for the Philadelphia Eagles, you can't have A.J. Brown doing next season what he did for the better part of this season, Mo. For me, if I was the general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm going to move him. And here's why. And I know Eagles fans are probably like, well, that's dumb. That's dumb, Chris. Stupidest thing I've heard this morning. I don't need that, Mo. I don't need what he did this season to pop up again next season. And in my opinion, and I don't know A.J. Brown. Obviously, I'm not in the Eagles locker room. But as an onlooker who could just list out the multitude of things he has done this season, it's not a blip. A blip is when you're having a bad game or you think they're not throwing you the ball and you lose it a little bit on the sidelines. That's a blip. When you're talking 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games of nonsense, and it's escalating nonsense. For me, Mo, that's an issue. And for me, I look at it and say, man, the Rams found Puka Nacua in the 5th round. Man, look what the Chiefs are doing with Rice. He wasn't a first-round top 10 draft pick. Receivers can be found in many places across the league, Mo. And there are going to be teams out there who are going to give you a decent return for A.J. Brown if you decide to move him. You can turn that into another quality receiver that isn't going to be the headache that A.J. Brown is. I get it. Eagles fans aren't going to agree, and I'm 100% okay with that. But for me, looking at how this season has progressed, if you are going to keep Nick Sirianni, I am not keeping A.J. Brown.
And I think it's not a secret. We all know that Howie Roseman is one of the best, if not the best GM in the NFL. And I know they already started with their exit interviews. But I'm curious because I have to assume you're actually right on this point. I think Howie Roseman calls A.J. Brown and he wants to have a sit down. And I think he wants to talk to him and explain that you are a big part of our offense. But the truth is, with you and D. Smith, we have one of the best combos in all the NFL, but we actually want to get the ball more to D. Smith. The more impactful he is, the easier your life is, the easier your opportunities become. If he excels, if he continues to develop, while we know you want to get your numbers and you want to be a Pro Bowl receiver, what's most important to the franchise, though, is winning a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
If you happen to be a Pro Bowl receiver in the year we win a Super Bowl,
Great.
That's great. But the goal is to win the Super Bowl. And I'm with you in this. I think Howie Roseman will consider moving him. And I do believe you're right where you can go out and find a young, talented receiver. But if you find a young, talented receiver, he might be very good. I seriously doubt he's going to have the impact that Puka Nacua had. Like that right there is lightning in a bottle. The likelihood that you're going to find another one of those and he's going to have a 1,400-yard season in year one, it's not likely at all. So I think that if you're going to go that route and you move him, you might want to try to pursue a move where you can also bring in a talent, let's say similar or at least somewhere in the same ballpark as an A.J. Brown. If you can do that, then I think you move on from him because you're right. He's a disruptive force in the locker room. And remember, your quarterback, your franchise quarterback, is still a young guy. He's a young guy. And what you can't have that going on is infighting between your young quarterback and your number one wide receiver who's not happy with the amount of targets he's getting. So I agree with you 100%. That conversation will be had. Will Howie Roseman he's made some really incredible moves over the years. That move would be a huge move. It wouldn't be surprising, but Howie doesn't do anything without a plan. If he's going to move A.J. Brown, he already has a player in mind to bring in to replace him. So if that happens, I think the replacement is somebody he's already got on a board who he would bring in to replace him.
And just to be straight, I don't think A.J. Brown is the number one target to move. I think Nick Sirianni should be removed before A.J. Brown
Right.
is removed. And I think that a different coach and a different culture is the way to fix that team. I don't think that just removing A.J. Brown is going to solve everything. I think that if you keep everything in place as far as Sirianni goes, yes, you need some different coordinators. But I think if you keep Sirianni in place, you're going to basically be saying we're going to keep the culture of the team in place, which I disagree with. But if you're going to go that route, then you need to get rid of A.J. Brown. And honestly, and I know I'm going to kind of contradict myself here, but it's not all A.J. Brown's fault for this reason, Mo. You do what your coach allows you to do. And Nick Sirianni, in my opinion, several times this season, has acted a fool. He has acted a fool on the sidelines. He has acted a fool before and after games. He has acted a fool in his comments. And when your head coach, the leader of your team, the tempo setter, and the tone setter for your locker room is consistently acting a fool, what do you do when your players follow suit? How do you have that? Well, listen, AJ, you can't be doing this. Okay, coach, that's weird because you're doing the same damn thing.
Right.
Like, how do you have that conversation when he's acting a fool, but you've already been acting a fool yourself as the leader of this team? I don't know how you do that, Mo. So, again, A.J. Brown is a grown man. He is responsible for the choices that he makes, and I do think that his behavior has been detrimental to the team. But I also think the reason that some of these behaviors have come out as consistently as they have is because he feels like they can, because he sees what leadership is doing. He wouldn't do that on a Mike Tomlin team. He wouldn't. And if he did, he would do it once, and it will be taken care of, because that's what Mike Tomlin does. So I'm just saying, like, yes, he's responsible for his own actions, but would these actions continuously pop up if it was a different head coach? I don't think he would be doing this on a Mike Vrabel team. I don't think Mike Vrabel would put up with this nonsense.
Or Dan Campbell, not at all.
Correct. So, and again, it's not excusing his behavior. It's the same. It's the high school students and the substitute teacher. The class can be perfect when the normal teacher is there, but we all know what we're going to get when the substitute teacher walks into the room.
Oh, it's party time.
Correct. And that's any high school class Good, bad, indifferent. It's always going to be different when the substitute teacher is there. Nick Sirianni is a clown sometimes. When the clown show comes out, it's going to attract other clowns. And A.J. Brown may not always be a clown, but he's got a clown side to him, Mo. And he's shown it a lot more than I think he would have in a different situation.
And I think culture matters. This is now a Nick Sirianni culture. It's his culture. I think that the way he allows players, he would say he lets them express themselves. I would say that they follow his lead. They follow his lead. And I think that the way he handles things, it makes it difficult to me for the older team leaders like a Kelsey to rein in some of the younger players or rein in the guys that are kind of like malcontent because the coach is doing it, right? If the coach can do it, what do you think A.J. Brown is doing when Kelsey said, hey, man, just focus on football, chill. We don't need none of that. He's like, look at him. I know you're not talking. Look at that guy. That's the leader of our team. And he's all over the place. I really do think, look, we always talk about it. It starts from the top down, and there's a disconnect because they've got a great owner. They've got one of the best, if not the best GM in football. But the disconnect is from the head coach to the players. And I think that's the disconnect. And right, I'm with you. I would have moved on from Nick Sirianni. But again, you can make the same argument. We talked about earlier with Mike McCarthy. You did just go to the Super Bowl last year. And
True.
We were 10-1. We're about to be the number 1 seed in all the conference. And we just hit a slide. You know, sometimes things can go our way, some injuries here and there, missed passes, drop balls. You can do the same spill. And I really do think the difference is, though, Mike McCarthy didn't have to audition. Jerry Jones talked himself into bringing him back. Jerry had that meeting all by himself. It was just Jerry and Jerry having that meeting in the mirror. This is going to be different. They're going to have Nick Sirianni come in there and go, all right, so the prosecution rests. What do you have? And then he's gonna go through his whole spiel. And if he's not convincing, he won't be the head coach by the end of the day.
And Mo, it's almost a bigger conversation in Philadelphia. And again, you know, sports is so hyperbolic and it's so reactive to different scenarios. You enter this season, and I wasn't one of them. I don't believe you were either. But you enter this season, and people are calling Jalen Hurts a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. And the reason they're doing that is because of the run that Philly went on to end the season, the playoff run that Philly went on, and the fact that they played one of the best Super Bowls competitively against the Kansas City Chiefs in recent years. It was a great football game that we saw where both quarterbacks shined in that game. So you enter this season, there's a lot of, oh, you know, Jalen Hurts is top 3. Jalen Hurts is top 2. It's Mahomes, then Hurts, or it's Mahomes and then Allen, or Mahomes and Lamar, then Hurts. And I'm sitting here like, damn, this is the same Jalen Hurts that his own team tried to trade for Russell Wilson.
Right. They weren't sure they wanted him.
Because they didn't think he was the guy.
Correct.
And then you go on one run. It was a great run. But you go on one run, and now all of a sudden he's like, it's Mahomes that then Hurts. So for me, I was like, well, let's see. Let's see what he does this season. And 11 games in, I felt like I was eating crow a little bit because I was like, damn, all right. They're 10-1. He's about to win his division. They're going to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. And then the wheels fall off. And I'm not saying, and again, you can be reactive and you can be hyperbolic and be like, oh, Jalen Hurts is garbage. No, I'm not saying that either.
Not at all.
But what I'm saying is now you've seen both extremes with Jalen. You're going to see the conversation of he's a top 3 quarterback in the league coming in to this current season. Now, coming out of this current season, you're going to have people who go the other way who say maybe Philly should have moved on from him. Maybe Philly should have looked in to getting Russell Wilson. Maybe Jalen isn't the guy. I don't think either of those are right, Mo. I think it's somewhere in the middle. But at the same time, you need to make sure that whatever the situation is in Philly next season, you're getting more of the first half of the season, Jalen, where, and again, he struggled the first half of the season. Let's not forget that. They were winning games that were a lot closer than they should have been. He had moments kind of like Josh Allen where it was a roller coaster ride. So I'm not saying he went from playing top tier football to playing like garbage. He went from playing above average football with great moments to playing below average football with some poor moments. We need to find somebody in Philly who can put all of that together and just get consistency out of Jalen Hurts moving forward. And Mo, you brought it up. You mentioned Kelsey. This is a whole nother layer to this Philadelphia situation. Kelsey went on his radio show with his brother Travis and said, kind of walked back the retirement talk. Basically said, I wasn't really in the right state of mind to be making any life-changing decisions following that playoff loss. But Mo, that also comes on the heels of reports out of Philadelphia that the Eagles were the ones who leaked that report of him retiring almost as a smokescreen for what's going to take place in Philadelphia over the next week, which could end up being kind of chaotic if they decide to make any sweeping changes. And Mo, for me, that is another example of what is wrong with the culture of this team. Whether it's true or not, the fact that there were reports coming out from your locker room that people were leaking Kelsey potentially retiring and essentially taking that moment away from him to kind of divert the attention of the chaos that's happening, that's not good, Mo.
It's not good, and it also speaks to a team that's a locker room that's, I would say, it's frayed. I don't think there's factions. I just think there's a lack of overall leadership. Kelsey is a leader, but I think that the best teams in football have multiple leaders, right? And they all seem to be geared towards the same goal: win the Super Bowl, focus on you know the line, do your job, focus at the task at hand, that kind of thing. I think the Eagles have a lot of individuals who have their own agendas. And when you have a lot of individuals who have their own agendas, you don't have a football team. And that might well start with your head coach, who seems to enjoy the camera, likes to be I don't want to say make a spectacle, but or maybe I should say he likes to make a spectacle. My point is this: you're the leader of men. You can be passionate. There's nothing wrong with that, but you need to be a leader, and that needs to permeate down throughout your locker room. And I think the Eagles, we could go deeper into this. They're also one of the older teams in football, right? Like I think that some of their more talented players, some of those guys, especially on the defensive side, they're older guys. So I think that Howie Roseman, he's got his work cut out for him. And the Kelsey situation is kind of emblematic of their season. Like, why would someone in the locker room take it upon themselves to just leak that, knowing full well how it would impact Kelsey? Like you said, if he were doing that, taking that away from him because it's his decision, it's his moment, and they did that. And I know that's got to drive him crazy. It has to. It would drive me crazy. So I look at Philadelphia, and maybe this takes us back to our first topic. I think Jerry Jones is a smart enough guy that he sees the bigger picture. His biggest competition in the division is the Philadelphia Eagles. And he looks at them and he goes, these guys are a mess. He goes, yeah, I'm bringing Mike back. Like Mike's got some things going on, but you know what? These guys are coming apart at the seams. Like, no, we're not making any changes. Like, I think we're going to be good. We're fine. Like Jerry Jones, like I said, every morning, you're telling me there's a chance. He looked at the Eagles and he goes, no, I'm keeping Mike. We're good.
Staying in the NFC East, the Washington Commanders obviously have moved on from Ron Rivera. We knew this was coming. We thought it was going to happen last season. It eventually did happen this season. News came out, Mo, about Ron Rivera. He not only wants to continue coaching in the NFL, but he has said, listen, hey, if the opportunity is right, I have no issue going back to being a defensive coordinator for a team. So not only does he want to continue his coaching career, he realizes, coming off of his Washington stint, being a defensive-minded head coach in a very offensive-driven league, his market for a head coaching gig might be a little small. So, Mo, I love the move. Expand your market and say, listen, I have no issue being a defensive coordinator, and then who knows where he ends up. He is a great defensive play caller, Mo. You never know. There could be a situation if your current head coach gets fired. Next thing you know, interim coach Ron Rivera, and now you might have new life as a head coach where you might not have had the opportunity before. So
that's kind of clever.
It is, right?
It's
Because
kinda
I
clever.
don't know what his market would be as a head coach, because look who else is out there. Bill Belichick.
Correct.
Who's a lot better than Ron Rivera. No offense to Ron, but he's a lot better than him, but they're cut from the same ilk. And if you're open to hiring a Ron Rivera, you're probably also open to hiring a Bill Belichick. And I don't know how many people are going to settle for Rivera if they want a Belichick. So I think he sees the writing on the wall and he's like, hey, listen. If you want me as a head coach, I will talk to you. That's great. But maybe you need a defensive coordinator too. Dallas might be needing a defensive coordinator. Looks like Dan Quinn might be on his way out. There's going to be some opportunities for defensive coordinators. The New York Giants are going to need a defensive coordinator. Those are just two off the top of my head right now, Mo. There's going to be opportunities out there for him.
So I could see Ron Rivera, and like you said, brilliant move. And maybe he got with his agent, his people, and said, look, take a step back. Go back down to doing what you do best. Be a defensive coordinator for a year or two. And what if you're the coordinator of a team that ends up being one of the top 5 defenses in football? You go on a deep run, and guess what? People are talking about you again in the sense of a head coach.
Yep.
I'll say this. If I am the owner of the team that hires Ron Rivera, what I would tell him in our meeting is, I absolutely love bringing you in as our defensive coordinator, but I need you to know ahead of time, no matter what happens, you will not be the head coach of this football team. That's what I would do. I think Ron Rivera has been a capable, solid head coach, but I think that, like you said, unless you're the best of the best, and that would be Bill Belichick, and he is considered a dinosaur in this era to some degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
The guys that are defensive-minded head coaches, they're a dying breed. They really are. And so I think that, and not to mention, Ron Rivera is also an older guy as well. I would just say that I want you as a defensive coordinator, but if you came here with the thought of at some point I'll be a head coach again, it won't be with this franchise.
Well, let's pivot real quick to the NBA here. LeBron, James, and company looked pretty gosh darn good last night as they roll over the Dallas Mavericks. Of course, Mo, you live in this land. You live in Laker land. So what is the talk this morning? Are they turning the corner? Is this the start of something in LA after they knock off the Dallas Mavericks? Mo, I'm going to go to you because you would know better than anyone else. Are we turning a corner, or is it just one of those nights in the NBA where literally anybody can beat anybody? Because we see this a lot throughout the season.
They had a good night, and they played well. The defense was all over the place. They showed a lot of energy throughout the game. AD was dominant. Dallas had no one that could match him, so he automatically forced double teams. He passed out of the double teams. LeBron played well. D'Angelo Russell had a great shooting night. All the things you need to happen for them. So I take it as a good win. And by the way, the Lakers have a lot of good wins on their records. They've beaten OKC twice. It's a very good team, young, very good team. They've beaten the Clippers, one of the hottest teams in the NBA, and they just beat the Mavs. Having said that, I'm just looking at the record. If you're at 500 or a game over, I'm not talking about this as a start of anything. Right now, you're not in the playoffs. And all the talk of, and if everything was great and everything was fine, we wouldn't hear all these rumors of DeJounte Murray, Zach LaVine. Now it's DeMar DeRozan. Like, there's all kind of names, and you don't hear trade rumors like that when everything's fine. You don't hear trade. And if you're the Los Angeles Lakers, when you're 10th or 9th or 10th in the West, something's not right. I got to go off of your body of work. The good wins are cool, but guess what? There are bad teams that have good wins. And right now, you're one of the bad teams. You need to make some kind of a change, but it needs to be a change that fits your two best player skill sets. So I enjoyed watching the game last night. Again, like I said, I give them credit. It was a very good win, but the Mavericks aren't world beaters. So it is what it is. Like the Mavericks are a good team, but is there anybody outside of Dallas that thinks the Mavericks are a title contender? Because I don't.
Mo, it's all, and I'm gonna upset Laker fan here, and I don't mean to, but I would almost compare it to what's happening in Golden State. There are nights where, well, I mean, Steph has been Steph the entire season, but there are nights where Steph takes it to the next Steph level, and Clay looks like Clay from 3 years ago, and Draymond's having one of his 10 good games in the season, and Wiggins doesn't look completely lost out there, and you're like, man, if the Warriors could do that consistently, they're a playoff team this season. They're a potential playoff run this season. But then the Warriors come out the next game and they lose to a team like the Memphis Grizzlies, who have no talent on that roster.
How did that happen?
Right? And you're like, oh, never mind. Got a little crazy last night. Said the Warriors were going to do something. That's almost what you're looking like. I think it's a step above that if you're the Lakers. But I think because I think they're more talented than the Warriors are.
For sure.
But you look at the Lakers, and like you just said, well, Russell can have one of his good shooting nights, and they had energy throughout the game. Like when you're saying those things, Mo, when you're saying like, well, if this player can have one of his good shooting nights, and if we can just keep the energy from start to finish, like when you're having those conversations, you're talking about a flawed team.
Correct.
And that's what the Lakers are. The Lakers are a flawed basketball team. The ceiling is always going. You saw the ceiling in the Dallas game. The ceiling is when Russell has his good shooting night, when AD is dominant on the inside and he's passing and distributing and he's forcing double teams, when LeBron is being LeBron and he's getting good minutes in, when there's energy on both sides of the ball and people want to play defense. That's the ceiling for the Lakers. Unfortunately, we don't see that every night. And I think as a Laker fan, if you sit down like Jerry Jones did and just have an internal conversation with yourself, I think you also know during playoff time, it's going to be hard to get that consistently in a 7-game series. Not that you can't do it, but those are the conversations you realistically have to have with yourself. And Mo, that's why they're looking for help. That's why you're hearing all these names, because the Lakers front office, and by front office, I mean LeBron, they know that when they get into a playoff situation, which they're hoping they're going to get to, they're going to need a little more juice. And that's why they're looking at things right now and saying, well, if we could tweak this, we could tweak that, maybe we'd be in a better spot. But Mo, like you said, at the end of the day, a couple of days ago, this was an 11th place team. That's not by accident. You're not an 11th place team by accident. You're there because you probably deserve to be there. So
and look at the West. Oklahoma City, a young team. Now they've beaten them a couple times, but still, Oklahoma City's going to be in the playoffs, and I think they're growing as they play right now. I mean, this is a young, talented team. Look at the Timberwolves, young, talented team. At the top of the West, the defending champion Nuggets. They haven't been whole. They've been off and on with injuries, but as far as I'm concerned, until otherwise other notice, that's still the team to beat. Look at a team like Phoenix. I think Phoenix is kind of in the same boat as the Lakers. You see the star power, and you say to yourself, like, sure, because of the star power, they have a puncher's chance. Well, I feel that's the Lakers. They have a puncher's chance, and every time we have to start a sentence off is when they play defense, and when LeBron and AD, and if they have a third scorer, if D'Angelo Russell's playing well, and they get production from the bench. If you have to go down a laundry list of if there's something wrong with your basketball team as a whole, and you need to make changes. And to me, right now, at best, if they went on a run, what are they going to be? Maybe the 6th seed or the 7th seed. First round series, maybe you get into the second round. I know last year they made a run and they got to the conference finals. And I want to remind everyone, and that's a great achievement. You went there, though, but you did get swept in the conference finals. It's not like it was one of the great conference finals of all time. You got swept. you have to make some kind of change, and it has to be something dynamic. And I don't know if it'll be for the better, but I know that right now the status quo is going to have you in the play-in.
And again, I know Laker fan, you might be upset because I made the Golden State comparison, but let's not forget Golden State a couple years ago, they made the playoffs and they had a puncher's chance to win a title because of their ceiling, and they won one. It happens, Mo. So if you're the Lakers, it's not doom and gloom. You make the best of what you have. You make sure you get to the playoffs, and then who knows what happens once you're there.
Agreed.
Because if you play to your ceiling consistently for a month and a half, you might find yourself like the Warriors did against the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals. We just don't know if the Lakers can do that over an extended period of time, nor do we know what this team is going to look like come playoff time either. So We'll see. We'll see. Other interesting news coming out of the NBA. We mentioned Oklahoma City a moment ago, wrapping up the investigation on Thunder guard Josh Giddey. He was cleared of any wrongdoing in relation to the social media rumor that he had an inappropriate relationship with a minor. Police have closed the investigation, saying that they were unable to corroborate any of the claims. Now, let's be forthright. We're not saying it didn't happen. We're not saying that this might not come up again later on. What we're saying is they looked into it and there was no proof. There was no evidence that what this social media account, that by the way no longer exists now, it said it and it deleted itself. So let's also take that into the equation. But the social media account, all right, it pops up, it says what it says. The police look into it. They, after a month and a half investigation, they said, we found nothing that supports that claim that was made. So as for now, case closed, and that's that.
Case closed, but also don't forget, another part of what the police said is the people involved, nobody was talking.
Correct.
So again, no, he's not going to be charged with anything, and so the case is closed. But they didn't say there wasn't anything going on. What they said is the people involved aren't talking. All of a sudden, the young lady involved and her family, nobody had anything to say.
And that's where the lack of collaboration comes into play. Can't prove it if no one's going to say it happened.
Right.
So, and again, we say case closed for now because these things have a funny way, Mo. These things have a funny way of popping back up when the money dries out, when future money requests, when you send the request in Venmo and it's not received.
they have a long shelf life, Chris. They could come back in 2 years or 30 years.
Right. So, but as for now, it looks like he's going to put that behind him, and that's great for him personally, obviously. But that's also good for the Thunder organization as a whole. As this will hopefully no longer be a trending story that team has to deal with moving forward. And like I said, the police did their job. Nothing came out of it. Right. It is what it is. Let's jump back to the NFL as we wrap up the morning show here this morning. Mo, I want to take a look at the 4 teams that we have left in the AFC and the 4 teams that we have left in the NFC. And we talked about this last week. We talked about how playoff pressure is different for different teams. And that was a conversation that we had going into Super Wildcard Weekend. And that is a conversation that we are going to continue to have as we go into the divisional round. Let's start over in the AFC. So we got 4 teams left. It's the Chiefs, it's the Bills, it's the Texans, it's the Ravens. And I'll pose this question to you first. Of those 4 teams, who is under the most pressure to get a victory this weekend?
I would go Ravens. I would go the Ravens. They've had the best record in the league, and when they've played the better teams in the league, they've beat them down. They've looked dominant over the course of the regular season. Their quarterback's going to be the league MVP. They've got a lot of accolades. They walk into it, though, with the pressure of Lamar Jackson hasn't been able to win in the playoffs. And I think surely they're the better team going into the game. But if it's a close game, Chris, I think that pressure seeps in. It has to. And if it does creep in and it's a close game and you've got a young Texans team that doesn't know what they don't know, and a cocky quarterback like that, if it's a one score game, that's a scary proposition if you're a Ravens fan. So I think the Ravens, you want to come out fast, start early, and dominate. But it's no question they have the most pressure, in my opinion.
And I completely agree with you. Lamar Jackson is about to be a 2-time league MVP. And if they lose against the Houston Texans, he is going to be a 2-time league MVP who is 1-4 in his playoff career and has never been to a conference championship game. Mo, if that is not the textbook definition of a regular season stat compiler, right, I don't know what is. Because at that point, you can't tell me that he is as Cam Newton would say, a difference maker when you're winning multiple MVPs during the regular season. And then when the stage is the biggest, you would be 1-4, never got into a conference championship game. And I know it's a team sport. I know that more goes into it than that, but we also know the quarterback position is viewed differently. And if you are a 2-time MVP at the quarterback position and you're rocking a 1-4 playoff record, that's an issue, Mo. And that is an issue that is going to create a huge narrative for Mr. Jackson that will not go away until he finds playoff success.
Agreed.
Mo, I would argue that the second most pressure in the AFC is on the Buffalo Bills. Again, and I know fans are going to push back because they're going to look at this and say, well, I mean, look at what Buffalo had to go through. They were almost out of the playoffs. They had to win 5 straight games. Doesn't matter. Coming into this season, Buffalo was projected by most to win the AFC East. They did that. Buffalo was projected by most to have a high seed going into the playoffs. They have that. It doesn't matter how we got there. Once the playoffs start, Mo, that stuff doesn't matter. So now, as the winner of the AFC East for the 3rd, 4th, 5th year, whatever it is, and as the number 2 seed in the playoffs, you won your first playoff game against a inferior Pittsburgh Steelers team. Great. You can't go lose to Patrick Mahomes now, especially at home. You can't. This is the path to the AFC Championship game for Buffalo. It goes through Buffalo. You can't lose to Mahomes. You can't lose to that guy that everyone's always like, Josh Allen's great, but he's not Patrick Mahomes. You can't do that. Not in a season where the Chiefs haven't been playing great football. They don't have a lot of weapons. They're being forced to go to you in Buffalo. You can't.
You can't. And everything says this is set up for Buffalo to win. This is not the best version of the Kansas City Chiefs. If you looked at the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid era, you wouldn't say, like, this is one of their better teams. Like, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're going to always be optimistic. But there's no way you're actually going, like, we're definitely going to the Super Bowl this year. We're going to repeat. Like, you're more like, we hope. I could use the Lakers analogy with the Chiefs. Like, well, if the receivers catch the football, and if they can get open, and they line up right, and Kelsey feels a little bit younger. Like, I can use all those analogies for the Chiefs. Buffalo is supposed to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Buffalo. Now, mind you, that city of Buffalo, when you talk about football heartbreak, nobody knows more about football heartbreak than the city of Buffalo. I say that to say this. If Patrick Mahomes walks in there in your house with the team that he has at his side this particular season and he beats Josh Allen will never recover from this. He never will. It will be a mental block with him for the rest of his career. And we will just elevate Patrick Mahomes that much further up the ladder. Like, he has no business being in the AFC Championship game. Not with this team.
On that note, Mo, let's close out the morning show.
Hey, appreciate everybody that's in the chat. We always love the support. Thank you so much. Check out all the great content we have to offer on Sports Empire Network. Check out the Empire.
Make sure you're back. Same time, same place tomorrow morning. We are going to make our division round playoff picks. That is happening tomorrow morning right here on the morning show. Hey, Coffee and Sports, baby. We're powered by Sports Empire Network. Make sure you're with us tomorrow morning. We'll see you then.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any